Hello, everybody. Hey, hey, hey. How's it going, my friends? Hope you all doing well out there. So, wanted to sneak in a show. Was going to do it tomorrow, but I'm not going to be doing one Sunday, so figured I'd sneak one in tonight. And I got a good near-death experience for you, where we have further admission of the memory wipe in a near-death experience, which this topic is not talked about enough, and I bring it up, but there's something about this area that, you know, just isn't discussed with researchers. I mean, they'll talk about cases where there's like a memory loss or like gaps in memory or something, but not much is talked about it. So just want to put that out there and make sure that it's known. It's a really, really important aspect to all this. So hey T, hey Veracity Media, Acta, welcome. Seeking D, Fatima, Ion, Sidefish, Julia. Okay, so let's get into it. Oh yeah, the near-death experiencer's name is Tom Sawyer. He's since passed away. He died in 2007, I believe, in April 2007, if I recall. So yeah, but let's get into it. Just so you know, I did kind of have to I tried to clean up the audio as best I could. During one of the segments, we'll be going over a couple videos here. A couple short ones and one longer one. And the longer one, of course, was the one with the quality that was a little eh. So just want to give you a heads up on that. So my mic volume, I tried like hell to get it as close as even as possible and also drown out, excuse me, the hisses, but you know, there may be a little bit of a sound issue, so I'll try. Hopefully it'll come out okay, though. All right, so let's roll. Hey, Mary. Alrighty. Oh, where'd it go? Come on. There we go. All right, so this clip's about only like 3 or 4 minutes. It's a really, really condensed version of what he talks about. It's not much, but the memory wipe is acknowledged, and he even starts crying. He gets tears in his eyes right away just thinking about it. A lot of these NDE'rs, you do see that, and it's sad. It's sad because you know, he kind of gets that. I think he's got that guilt trip that, you know, he was kicked out of heaven type thing. So that's not an easy thing to come back to and acknowledge. And he's like, oh, I must have made a decision. So here we go. I'll let you hear it for yourself.
The next thing that I experienced or realized that I was in this huge vastness of just nothing, just darkness. I might add in here, during this time, the pressure and the pain that you experienced during the accident was gone. You were relieved of all that. The one sensation that you're very aware of is your eyesight, or that you can see. You then see that this area that you're in, that you're passing through, takes the shape of a tunnel. And dimension-wise, it was vast. It was anywhere from 1,000 feet to 1,000 miles wide. And it was definitely to infinity. Before you is this just magnificent, beautiful, bright white light. You are confronted by true, pure love. In my case, since I've talked to other people, I realize that they necessarily were not given a choice. In my case, at that moment, I was aware that I could immediately choose.
Okay, so he's saying that other people have said in their cases that they weren't given a choice. This is like a big problem, something we've talked about before. He claims that he got a choice, but can't remember that he must have made that choice. So, here.
Were not given a choice. In my case, at that moment, I was aware that I could immediately choose to leave and return to reality, or my body.
See, the tears, you know.
Or I could have the choice of moving forward or desiring to enter into or become part, rather emotional, become part of this light. And the next moments, I did desire to become part of this light, including considering my life in reality, the love that I have for my wife and children.
See, considering my love for my wife, my children, that is the issue right there. That's why he's back here, in my opinion. Of course, there is the memory wipe, so there could be, of course, some other reason, but he's already connecting during the near-death experience with his life back on Earth, thinking of family, you know, wife, child, children, and that right there seems to always, boom, instantaneously throw them right back in their body. So really, really, really important moment that he brings up, but he can't connect with the reasoning, and it eats him up inside.
To become part of this light, including considering my life in reality, the love that I have for my wife and children, for the people around me, the wonderful things that I've been able to do in my life. I've had a really exciting and wonderful life prior to this experience, and the wonderful things that I can continue to do, helping the people around me, making love to my children and my wife and close friends and so on. But it was so much more desirable. This was perfection. This was heaven or God. And it is now confusing to me. I don't recall making a specific choice. I recall desiring to enter this light And I did, in fact, make a forward motion. Excuse me. The return trip was extremely vivid, and it was everything in reverse.
You went back through the tunnel,
right,
and so forth?
Back through the tunnel and to reality. And upon reaching the beginning of the tunnel at the reality point, I woke up or came to or entered my body with just a huge bang, with a jolt similar to an electric shock, or just, you know, bang like that.
The minute I just
So really, it's a tough one. It really is. You got to feel for Tom, and you know, mark my words, he made it there. He made it there. So, yeah, really, really sad. Just imagine coming back and being thrown back into your body, having a memory gap, and then kind of reassuring yourself and feeling that, you know, God kicked you out of heaven. That's not easy. I mean, he did seem to do better over time, but this is very common with near-death experiencers, where they come back and like they're confused, sometimes angry, sad, upset, go in depression, anxiety, for usually about a couple of years. So it's not easy by any means. So what I'm going to do is we'll move on to the next clip, and this let's see. You know what I'll do? Yeah, let me pop up his longer video. This one is about 39 minutes in total. And then there's also a video where he talks about reincarnation, which we'll play after that. And then I'm going to loop back to the very first segment at the end, which is only a few minutes, just to kind of give it a refresh for everybody, because I thought this first part that I played was really important. But, you know, obviously we all want the nuts and bolts, the data of the experience. So let's get into that. This is the one I talked about where, you know, it's a little dicey on the sound, and I really hope it comes out all right. If any of you in the chat can let me know as we play along with the video, if it's okay, I'd greatly appreciate it, in combination with my voice too. Yeah, just let me know maybe like a minute or two. Let's say we're both talking. Yeah, man.
Folks that are here that have not met you and that maybe never even heard of Tom Sawyer other than back in the book with the straw hat.
Well, that's easy to start out with. First of all, I'm sorry.
You want to fill them in on?
Okay, we'll do the super capsulized version of what happened to me and why I'm sitting here in front of this camera talking to you today. 11 years ago, I had a truck follow me. Right.
Okay, so 11 years ago, I had a truck follow me. How does that sound with his voice coming in? I'm going to rewind it. But
You want to fill them in on?
Okay, we'll do the super capsulized version of what happened to me and why I'm sitting here in front of this camera talking to you today. 11 years ago, I had a truck follow me right here in my driveway, and had the truck jacked up with the front wheels off it. The truck at that time weighed about 2 tons. And the truck fell on me and fell right across my chest, right in this area here, and squeezed all the air out of me and made me unable to breathe for a little over 15 minutes in time. Many things took place in the accident, including me having very profound, personalized and private thoughts, such as how degrading this was, that if in fact I die this way, that it wasn't good enough for me. Now, I don't mean that arrogantly. I mean that I was a very good mechanic, and this wasn't fair because it wasn't my fault that the truck fell on me. There were air pockets underneath the asphalt, and the driveway collapsed. So it wasn't my fault, it was asphalt.
Now, what does that sound like? That sounds like a total Matrix setup job. You know, he's a mechanic, got the car hitched up in the driveway, and the asphalt buckles and causes the problem. That sounds like a setup job to me. That sounds like a little life script in action. Just saying.
No, I don't mean that arrogantly. I mean that I was a very good mechanic, and this wasn't fair because it wasn't my fault that the truck fell on me. There were air pockets underneath the asphalt, and the driveway collapsed. So it wasn't my fault, it was asphalt. With that excuse and so on, and with that rationale that I simply had to be where I was and be still, there's a few things that you should know about me at the time. One of which was that 50 pounds ago, I was a national caliber athlete. I was in excellent physical shape, very strong. I was very assured of myself and my abilities. I was, as I mentioned, a good mechanic. I had the ability to hold my breath for over 3 minutes in time. I usually did my own work. It's not that I wouldn't allow anybody else to do work for me, but I was usually, very honestly, the most qualified, including working on my truck. So, should also stereotype myself a little bit and tell you that at the time I was an agnostic. I had been brought up a Christian Catholic, and in spite of the so-called learning and making my communion and confirmation, around the age of 13, I decided that that was very bluntly just religious stuff, hocus pocus baloney, and that it really had no bearing on my personal life. In other words, very bluntly, I had no personal relationship with any kind of a God. With the truck falling on me, that changed very instantly and very dramatically. And it wasn't just that I almost died. It was very bluntly that I was able to see God and experience that. And realistically, for the first time in my life. Also, I was pretty much an all-American guy at the time. I was 33 years old and married with 2 children.
Wow. 33 years old, married with children. Matrix job.
Also, I was pretty much an all-American guy at the time. I was 33 years old and married with 2 children. At that time, my son Todd was 10 years old. He was assisting me working on the truck. And as soon as the truck fell, he ran in and called the paramedics. So some of the...
I mean, can you believe that? 33 years old. You know, I'm of course, not all NDE'rs are happen at 33. There's a lot of wide ranges of ages, but 33 does pop up from time to time. Or is it because it just happens to stick out more because of all of our research? But no, I think I'll just go with a Matrix reveal.
Children. At that time, my son Todd was 10 years old. He was assisting me working on the truck. And as soon as the truck fell, he ran in and called the paramedics. So some of the scientific information we get about the accident was, for instance, it was called in at 7:41 in the evening. And shortly after 8 o'clock that evening, the paramedics arrived at the driveway and rushed up to assist me in my extrication and my survival. During that time, many things happened. One of which was, as I was going unconscious after a couple of futile, yeah, that's right, futile, I know it's something like that, futile attempts to ward off the oxygen deprivation and the onset of the unconscious state, you know, where you shake your head no and try real hard. Some intensive thoughts were in my head that it's more important to struggle and hang on and live than it is to just give in and die. And that was at the point where it was physically acceptable or okay to just give in and pass out and have all the pain and suffering and so on like that just go away. And in spite of that, you know, I did care about life. An attitude like that is important in the last few seconds of
a traumatic experience or a state of disease, especially if it's terminal. And I felt that way, and I was appreciative of the last few seconds in time to struggle a little further. But I did get to the point of unconsciousness, and as I went unconscious, I had the experience of seeing, and when I say seeing, I don't necessarily mean seeing with my physical eyes. It was seeing, at least hypothetically, the experience, it felt exactly the same as seeing. And what I was seeing was blotches or flashes of various colors. They were very beautiful. It was very enjoyable. I don't have any scientific explanation whatsoever for what this was or why I saw it in the way that I did, but
Or you'd need one.
I first tried to describe it and said that it was all the colors of the spectrum. And then I learned and realized that that includes infrared and ultraviolet. And I still say that it certainly was that. And that I experienced the extreme visual connotation of various colors. And colors such as opalescences, phosphorescences, fluorescences, that of course I have not been able to duplicate, and it was very enjoyable and nice.
I mean, one of the big indicators in NDEs we often hear are colors incapable of being described, usually ranging all different hues, vibrant to just colors that just cannot be described. So very, very common.
That, of course, I have not been able to duplicate, and it was very enjoyable and nice. Well, with no explanation as to either exactly what that was or why I experienced it, even 11 years later, the experience went on to just having a state of unconsciousness. I had a feeling of being completely unconscious, everything blank, and nothing to describe at all, and then rather instantaneously having the experience of waking up from that state. And when I say waking up, I didn't get up because the truck was still on me. I didn't necessarily open my eyes or take a breath. I wasn't able to do that. So what we're really talking about is from a physically unconscious state where the last few heartbeats were experienced and my heart was stopped, and of course all the other organs were slowing down to the point, and this experience of absolutely waking up was just my mind and possibly some brain functioning going on. And the perceptions that I had is what I'm describing to you now. Those perceptions were feeling absolutely awake. Everything was vivid and clear. I had the same sensations as being able to hear accurately, see as well as I've ever seen, and I've always had good vision. You know, even though I'll describe to you paradoxically that there was no well, I lost my train of thought when a friend just drove by. Yeah, there was a sense of timelessness. I realized that very bluntly there was no such thing as time. And in this timeless state, I had the experience of, for instance, trying to experience where am I, what's going on here, and looking around just as though you would do it physically. It was the, the same feeling, same sensations as that. Looking around and thinking, what in the world is this, where am I? And being able to only see absolute darkness. There were no identifiable objects. It was absolutely black, opaque. And with this realization...
All right, so he's basically in a void-like state prior.
Darkness. There were no around and thinking, what in the world is this, where am I? And being able to only see absolute darkness. There were no identifiable objects. It was absolutely black, opaque. And with this realization, even though I wasn't frightened by this was still comfortable, the next experience that I can describe to you is having that darkness or blackness just take the shape of a tunnel.
Dun, dun, dun.
Shape of a tunnel is the best description as far as I'm concerned. I've heard other people in the last 11 years say a funnel, a tube, an abyss or abyss. Various other descriptions, but I like the idea of a tunnel because it's cylindrical. It extends forward, in my circumstance, to infinity. It was ever so slightly funnel shaped, allowing for the depth perception. With this realization and this sighting of this tunnel, I had the feeling that I was moving forward, and it was straightforward, well-balanced, comfortable, and through the center of this tunnel. That forward motion increased in speed, although there was not wind, vibration, sound. There was certainly a visual connotation of the tunnel flashing around me or me going through the center of it. But there were no G-forces like we would normally experience in acceleration.
Well, you're not experiencing that because you're not in the human body anymore, so you don't have that sensation.
With this acceleration, however, the first empirical piece of knowledge that I gained from this out-of-body experience or near-death experience was that I realized, and I simply realized that, let's say intuitively, I realized that I attained the speed of light or possibly faster than the speed of light. At that time in my life, I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't realize that it was physically impossible. I didn't realize anything at all about Albert Einstein's theories on relativity, and I was not aware of mathematically that it's basically 186,000 miles a second. I knew that it was very, very fast, but more importantly and more accurately, I knew that whoever I was at that time, and I felt as though I was myself, Tom Sawyer and all my character and characteristics, that I was going or functioning at the speed of light. So whisking through this tunnel, the next thing that I'll describe to you is that way off and paradoxically to infinity was this minute little speck of light.
This is where things take a turn, like always, right? Minute speck of light in the distance. Even the hell-like or negative NDEs will often see a, speck of light in the distance even if they're having a horrible experience. There's usually almost always like that speck of light somewhere. Like I interviewed a guy who there was like this altar. He was getting his ass kicked in the NDE, but every time he'd look at that altar, it had a bright white light, and I think in the center of it, and it would give him relief, and then he'd go back to this experience. But if he started focusing on that white light in the altar, he would get a lot of comfort. He'd feel great. And this is what they do. They target us with the euphoria rush, with the sensation of love, the frequency of love, overwhelming love that cannot be put into words. So let's continue and hear what he has to say.
Minute little speck of light. That light was very profound. It was the first identifiable object that I was able to perceive or see. So I was eagerly anticipating, what is that? And isn't that beautiful? And with that realization, it was even more profound because that little speck of light way, way off in the distance was very bluntly the most beautiful thing that I'd ever experienced in my life. It was absolute total beauty. It was white. Sometimes we like to dress up white by saying blue-white, like we try to grade diamonds and such. It was absolutely pure. It was brighter than something that would immediately blind you. It was the brightest thing that I'd ever experienced.
Another common data point we see over and over and over again. It's the brightest thing that they ever saw, brighter than the sun, but couldn't hurt their eyes. So very common.
Pure. It was brighter than something that would immediately blind you. It was the brightest thing that I'd ever experienced. Brighter than 100,000 carbon arcs or welder's torches. Various things of brightness that we could measure. It was at least the equivalent and brilliance of the supernova. It was also, other than beautiful, it represented a type of love that I'd never experienced. Now I can use the phrase unconditional love.
That he'd never experienced. Again, I know I bring this one up a lot, but it's important to hammer home that almost universally, if you hear from an NDE'er, they're going to say it's like the most love that they ever felt. More than any love that they can compare it to on Earth. Now, you know, some aren't going to necessarily say that word for word, or they're going to say something similar. It's like love you can't describe, whatever. And then you have, again, mothers talking about how the love is on a level that is stronger than the birth of their own child, or you know, or the day they got married, or, you know, universally across the board, this love is never comparable to something that we've experienced here. So, you know, take the most loving moment you can recall in your life and multiply it by 1,000, you know, 10,000, whatever, and there you go. And you can see how this could be used as a tool to take advantage of us. You know, everyone loves to feel loved, right? But you can see how easily this is used against us. It's really crazy.
It was also, other than beautiful, it represented a type of love that I'd never experienced. Now I can use the phrase unconditional love, although I wasn't familiar with that phrase at the time of this accident. As I got closer to it, it's incorrect for me to say that the light got better, because I'm trying to describe perfection for you. Once you attain perfection, you can't get better than that. You can't have something improve. And in spite of that dilemma, it is...
Calls it perfection. Perfection. Can't improve. So they make the perfection, you know, seem godly, loving. Because it's so loving, so amazing, it has to be God, right? Can't be anything else. Really. I mean, this is where we're at with this stuff. Like, because it makes us feel so good and relate with it, and that it loves us, cares for us, that it can't possibly at all have our, you know, it can't be bad, right? Can't be wrong. It's got to be good.
The light got better, because I'm trying to describe perfection for you. Once you attain perfection, you can't get better than that. You can't have something improve. And in spite of that dilemma, it is paradoxically accurate for me to say that it was more perfect, it was better and better. And in the last several years, a realization has come that if you have something that is perfect and you're observing it or you're experiencing it, it can't get any better. But you and your perceptions can get clearer and more accurate.
And your perceptions can be also deceived. That is one of the biggest things I learned in this existence, is that, you know, our perception, you know, we can fine tune it and improve it over time, but it is by no means perfect when you have a human body attached to that. And we can clearly see that perception can be skewed and manipulated in the astral. So, you know, just gotta say that. It's not all love and light, my friends. It's just not. You gotta be open to looking at both ends of the spectrum, and that deception is possible. Playing the opposite roles of what you'd expect. Evil playing good and good playing evil, and playing both sides, I should say. Playing both sides.
So as I developed a better sense of what it was I was experiencing, that's where I have the sensation or the realization that things got better or clearer or more accurate. There was some type of a deceleration in this tunnel, because the next thing that I want to describe to you is that I was motionless. I was stopped at the end of the tunnel, and I had a realization, let's just call it intuitive again, that behind me was this tunnel. I did not turn around to verify it, say to turn around and look at it. It wasn't necessary. Much more importantly was before me, and then covering the entire vista before me, just totally engulfing everything, was the light. As I approached the end of that tunnel, I realized that the light itself was emanating from outside the end of the tunnel. It was not the very end of the tunnel. It was engulfing whatever the realm was outside this tunnel.
Yeah, that's very common. It's almost like it's like piercing outside like this border. And sometimes people, they feel they can't even really go much further. Like it's almost like a border, while others, it's different. So I think that's a really, really important point that he makes, in relation to his experience.
Realized that the light itself was emanating from outside the end of the tunnel. It was not the very end of the tunnel. It was engulfing whatever the realm was outside this tunnel. And again, that might just be symbolism. It might just be a focused perception onto the aspect of the light. And once that perception is focused accurately enough to perceive any degree of it, then there's no longer the need for the symbolic tunnel or funneling or focusing. I like those phrases. Interesting.
Exactly, D. Blinded by the light. Blinded by the light.
I've never quite told it that way. I think it shines a little different light on the subject. Before me was the light, and instantaneously, and I want to emphasize instantaneously, the light emanated to me in a telepathic way. And, you know, let me first say and get out of the way that, very bluntly, the light is God. The light is the light of Jesus Christ. The light of Buddha enlightened. And, of course, if you're offended by this Eastern analogy that this man, Buddha, that I'm saying is also the light and God, I'm not saying that he, the man Buddha, is God. I'm saying that a man who became Buddha and extremely enlightened has passed on and is now in that light, and therefore God-like.
Thereby God-like. God-like. So again, one of my favorite videos that I did was the unsub special, the God Deception. And there is I only put a small list, and it was a huge list, but it was a small list of all the different gods. Okay. So again, he literally thinks he's dealing with God itself. Okay. But Buddha's, there's a little Buddha energy going on, a little Jesus going on. But, the light is God itself. That's what he says. Or himself, I think was the term he used. But again, how do you know? How do you know? If there are all these multiple deities running around, how do you know which one is which? And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, it's just like this. The light is God. Oh, okay. See, this is where the problem comes in. We just don't know. So we got to play it safe. That's always like what I'm putting out there. Just play it safe. Walk in sovereignty and liberation on your journey as, your firm stance for existence. And just take care of yourself. See what happens. Don't mix yourself up in these things that you know nothing about. If we weren't memory wiped, okay, and came here and had our memories and this and that and blah, blah, and, felt confident about our relation to this realm and the exterior to here that is obviously linked to here, that would maybe be a little different. Maybe we'd be able to, maybe they'd have a better shot, better crack at, people like us. But they aren't messing with my essence. They're not messing with your essence. Enough is enough. You got to draw the line here. And we got to stand up for ourselves and just question things and play it safe. There's no reason to be rushing into anything. I mean, I've talked about my exit strategy at the time of natural death many, many times. I'm not going to go over it again, but all I'm saying is what is wrong with taking matters into your own hands, going about your day, even though there's no time when you leave here, and just playing it safe. Just play it safe. That's all you got to do. But I also advise, set your intention to get
Buddha that I'm saying is also the light and God. I'm not saying that he, the man Buddha, is God. I'm saying that a man who became Buddha and extremely enlightened has passed on and is now in that light, and therefore God-like. That's what I'm describing. But as I first perceived it, I just perceived that the light emanated to me and made me understand that some most profound things, such as, and I'll role play again to describe the dialogue of sorts that I've kind of translated. For instance, the light emanated to me, Tom, you have to be where you are and in the condition that you are, and before you is the light, which is redundant because I was already experiencing that. You have an opportunity, Tom, to perceive or desire or ask any question, any series of questions. And regardless of what the question is or how intensive the knowledge is necessary to even understand a proper questioning, that as soon as you formulate the desire for such a question, that the absolute, unequivocal, correct answer will be emanated instantly back to you.
Wrong, wrong, no. That's blind trust. That's blind trust that you are putting that energy out there, that question out there, you're getting answers. Now, see, this is where a big problem comes in with me and not all, but a number of NDE'ers. What they'll say is, I was all-knowing, including Tom says that word. I don't remember when it is, but it's at some point. He says, I was all-knowing, but at the same time, he has questions. You can't be all-knowing and have questions and get answers externally to yourself and just say, well, I mean, if you're all-knowing, why do you even have to ask the question? If you're all-knowing, and there isn't like, you're not forgetting things and don't recall making a specific choice to come back here, we can kind of see where the problem comes up, right? I mean, again, you cannot be all-knowing and have to ask outside entities questions. It's just nonsensical. If you're all-knowing, you don't need to ask anything. You just know.
The desire for such a question, that the absolute, unequivocal, correct answer will be emanated instantly back to you. Now, what I'm describing is a phrase that I've coined, which is very accurate, and it's superluminal telepathic communication.
Boom.
In that it's a telepathic type of rapport, just thought pattern to thought pattern, that functions at or faster than the speed of light. Little loose ends tied together, and this was not just logical deductive reasoning. This is something that I was shown and told as part of the experience. In other words, if you're so inclined to understand anything at all about clairvoyance, it would be a telepathic, clairvoyant type rapport that is extremely pure or functioning at such a speed that is outside the realm of this physical existence and outside time.
All right, there's another word. Pure. Pure. Again, assumptions. Assumptions that it's pure. How do you know it's pure? You don't know it's pure. You just came from Earth. A car fell on you, and immediately you're thrusted into realms, thrown down. You're thrusted into a void-like state, thrown down a tunnel, get bombarded with love, and really, I mean, again, it's just it's automatic. It's correct all the time. It can't possibly be a deception. Not possible.
It is outside the realm of this physical existence and outside time. If you function at the speed of light, you cease to function in what we know as in time. So your perceptions would be at the speed of light, and any kind of dialogue would be not held by the bonds of timelessness or timeliness, and that if you ask something, you can be given the answer simultaneously. I asked many questions, and to capsulize that, just to give you an idea of what would be a question that I would ask. Again, it's incorrect for me to say first question, second question, third question, because you're missing the point of the timelessness and missing the idea behind superluminal telepathic communication. But one of the questions, which in all probability would have been a first, would be, am I okay? And I didn't mean, am I alive or dead, because I'd already experienced my heart stopping and realizing that I was at least clinically dead. In that capacity, I was asking, am I okay? In other words, in God's eyes, am I all right? Am I okay? And I can kind of smile and brag and say thumbs up that, for the moment being at least, that everything was all right. And then the most profound questions, in hindsight of this experience, I would kind of damn myself and say, why didn't I ask for a particular cure to a type of cancer, so that now that I'm here and having had this experience, I could share that with a major university and be able to facilitate something that was not selfish or just about me and share it with the rest of the world. Well, the timelessness of that seemed to be more timely than anything else, in that I was limited as to the degree of questions and so on. I wasn't limited to the type of question, but just the degree of my perceptions of what I needed to know before I went on with this experience. And one of those questions was very bluntly, what about the Jesus stuff?
What about the Jesus stuff? Very bluntly. I want to know what's going on with the Jesus. Praise the Lord.
And one of those questions was very bluntly, what about the Jesus stuff? And in that capacity, understanding again that I was an agnostic at the time, but at least curious enough to know, like many people question, come on, all kidding aside, what about that Jesus stuff? I mean, is it real or isn't it? And, you know, some people can have very profound faith, and they can fervently believe and follow Christianity and be a good Christian, and still that little bit of doubting Thomas in them saying, you know, some of the fine details perhaps of who was Jesus the Christ, what is the Christ, what is the Christ light, where is it, how is it perceived, am I that, are you that? So very bluntly, I asked, what about the Jesus stuff? And of course, that's a translated version of the desire to know all that. So it was emanated, for the moment being at least, thumbs up in the affirmative, that it was okay. And that one singular question, that one desire, really the questions were answered, was there this man, Jesus of Nazareth? Did he walk around and have a ministry, so to speak? Was he divine? Is he divine? Where is he now? In other words, what about all the Jesus stuff? And that was answered. I was able to see that, perceive it.
Oh.
Well, that's what
Oh.
I call the question and answer period. Part of that question and answer period was a realization that I had a choice, and the choice for me was that I could desire to return to normal life, and the instant that I had that desire, the instant that I perceived that or wished for that it would happen absolutely, and that there would be no strings attached, that as soon as I decided that I would wish to return to normal life, it would happen. The other half of that choice was that I could stay and become part of that light.
Damn, Jesus be playing him like a fiddle.
I decided that I would wish to return to normal life, it would happen. The other half of that choice was that I could stay and become part of that light. And you have to understand first where I am and what I'm describing. I'm talking about perfection. I'm talking about the heaven state. I'm talking about God. And even though life is beautiful, we've got flowers around us and all kinds of relationships and learning experiences, what I'm really describing is an opportunity to finalize that and move on to the next stage in our lives, which is what we call after death. And of course, to be in that state of perfection is not much of a choice at all.
State of perfection, there's not much of a choice at all. State of perfection, declared by him and a bunch of others who have NDEs and make such bold statements. And
of course, to be in that state of perfection is not much of a choice at all.
Not much of a choice at all. Not much of a choice at all. Well, you know, I'm of the opinion that you shouldn't even be in this realm. Not this realm, but you shouldn't be in the the white light, you know, going through the tunnel. You should not even allow yourself to enter those realms. And if you do, for some weird, freaky reason, bail. Boom, hit that button, get out of there. Remember, you're a creator being. You have insane abilities. And you can get out of this mess. But do not, by any means, get stuck in that light. If you get to that light, I cannot say what can happen. I'm sure, like, you know, we could possibly muster up some strength with our creator being abilities, but I'll be honest, it seems all but close to impossible if you allow yourself to go there. So, you know, it seems almost across the board, almost, not fully, but almost across the board, that you have to start going through that tunnel. Okay? Don't have to, but if you do end up in the tunnel, bail immediately. Immediately. Don't look at the light, turn around, set that intention to be, not turn around, but just set your intention to immediately exit the matrix completely. That's what you got to do. Do not, by any means, get to that light. Because, like, if I was an insurance company, I wouldn't insure you that you would make it out. I don't even care how much you'd offer for the policy. I would not do it. So remember, stand your ground. You're strong, resourceful. You know, you call the shots. That's why now, today, like, if you know, and it's really important that I say this, like, that's why learning this material is so crucial. Because eventually you'll reach a point, like if you're on the fence with this stuff, eventually you really need to reach a point where you know it's happening deep within you. There's no questions asked. Now, could there be, of course, some fine details that, you know, I missed or Dan missed or Wayne missed? Of course, there could be a bunch of different things that are off or wrong, but there are concepts that I feel completely comfortable in saying, and that is that we are creator beings and we are capable of calling the shots if we want to, and as long as we don't get involved with creepy beings, creepy AI systems, and lights and tunnels and visual distractions and all that stuff. All of that has to be immediately shut down if you even experience it. And the reason why I'm saying it's important to learn the material and get to the inner knowing aspect of this is because then you can start transferring your day-to-day life into sovereignty and liberation. That's how you walk your path day to day. Like, I'm at the point, like, I'm not worried about the tunnel. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. It's simply not allowed to exist in any part of me. Nothing. No interruptions. No nothing. Nothing is allowed to interfere with me when I'm leaving at the time of natural death. And going forward, I walk that walk every day with sovereignty and liberation in my heart, in my mind, in my essence. And you know, no memories are going to be allowed to be erased. Period. The end. Memories come back. They don't withdraw. Okay, so that's why I say, you know, get familiar with this to the point where, like, you have that inner knowing. If you have that inner knowing, no need to watch. No need to research anymore. Like, you could just do whatever you got to do. Throw, you know, just all this stuff. No need to watch anymore. No need to research anymore on your own, but everyone should be researching on their own. But if you get to a point where you have that inner knowing, it's really just, a waiting game at that point. That's all. But a waiting game for natural death. Let's just make sure that's very clear. You know, again, don't ever think of taking your own life. It's just not. Remember, if you can't hack it now and get to that point, then you're really kind of showing a link of weakness. I hate to say it, but you want to have the most amount of time imaginable while you're here to keep building and building it. Just think about it. You're boiling that intention up to like a fever pitch, to the point of, okay, when the time comes at natural death, I'll be all good, all good. And you don't want a weak point to be extracted by the Matrix and taking advantage of you. I mean, I can't say that enough. I mean, it's so important to think like that, because who knows what's possible, and how they can interject with things or mess with you. Like, why even have that on the table? Why have that on the table? Just not a good place to be. So that's kind of like my PSA for the night. And please stand firm in sovereignty and liberation. You will all be just fine. And I know things are tough sometimes, but we're all here as a community. There's a Discord server you can always come and join us at, and talk with like-minded people. And of course, always do your own research too. All right, my friends, that's that.
Finalize that and move on to the next stage in our lives, which is what we call after death. And of course, to be in that state of perfection is not much of a choice at all. Many other people I found have a choice given to them, and they feel deep in their heart that they're unfinished business, that they have to come back for a reason, or that they're just not ready to die, or they can't quite handle this much right now, or that there's a selfishness of sorts, meaning that they don't feel it's proper for they to leave their children, or the many excuses why people would desire to return from a clinical death state, or what we call life after death. For me, it was not much of a choice at all. And I do have to interrupt the flow of this description and say that prior to my decision, I had to also have a complete total life review. And you cannot have a decision. A decision will not be allowed without the person's perception of their own life.
Okay. There's that word I really don't like. Allowed. Not allowed. Unless you go to the life review. So what happened to, come on. So let's hear that again. It's very disturbing.
Description and say that prior to my decision, I had to also have a complete total life review. And you cannot have a decision.
You cannot have a decision whether you're going to be allowed into God's pearly white kingdom with the gates glowing and Jesus and Buddha jumping on clouds and, Cupid pulling the bow and arrow and whatever the heck else is going on up in that place, without heading to the life review. Come on now, we got to get to the judgment zone. Let's go. Chop, chop.
Total life review. And you cannot have a decision. A decision will not be allowed without the person's perception of their own life, and perceived not only as they have lived it, but perceived with total knowledge, unconditional love, and learning experiences that you have learned subconsciously and superconsciously that you may not be intellectually or psychologically aware of. I had the life review, and I'll describe that in a minute or two, but I want to go on with the choice that I was given. I was given this choice, and only after having a life review, very bluntly, I chose to stay and become part of that light. The problem with that, and trying to sort this out with researchers and trying to describe it to people like yourself, is that there was a string attached to the decision to stay and become part of that light. And that it was emanated to me that if I decided to stay and become part of that light, that at that point, I would cease to function normally. I would no longer be exactly myself. that I would be an actual integral part of the light, or bear with me if I say that I would be light. And that would disallow me forever after to choose on my own decision, with my own characteristics and character, to return to normal life. So in other words, bluntly and simplistically, I could choose to return to normal life and it would happen. If I chose to stay, I would never be able to choose to return again. And now that you understand that, I did choose to stay and become part of that life. And as sorry as I feel for myself sometimes, I don't have any explanation as to exactly how, like manipulatively or...
Now this is where it gets interesting, because how he uses the word manipulatively. Not me. He uses it. Remember the clip we played at the very beginning of the stream? I don't recall making a specific choice. But remember, the really key thing to keep in mind is that he's already there. He's already, engulfed in this experience. He has put his direction, his intention towards this. And he does provide a couple reveals in this next couple statements that he talks about here. But it's really important. I can't stress that enough, that, again, you should not even be mixing yourself up in these scenarios, because the deck is stacked against us. I mean, totally stacked against us if we are going along with this, let's call it an agenda, okay? And deception and manipulation of us. That's just, it's not cool. And, there is a continued consent every step of the way in this experience, just like almost every other NDE we go over. It's just continued consent by going forward with the experience, continuing to interact, continuing to go down the tunnel, continuing to interact with deceased loved ones or Jesus or Buddha or God, going to the light, experiencing the light, getting overwhelmed with love and euphoria, the drug, the addiction of love, and the sensory overload with frequencies. This is the whole bowl of wax.
That life. And as sorry as I feel for myself sometimes, I don't have any explanation as to exactly how, like manipulatively or physically speaking, exactly how I was able to return to normal life. Or if there's a rationale or a reason or an excuse, I was never told or shown a single or a multiple excuse or excuses for being here now. I'm pleased that I'm here now. I'm satisfied. I'm probably the happiest person that you will ever meet, generally speaking. I have my ups and downs. I have physical problems. I even have to experience major surgery at times. So all the very realistic parts of living are very much back in my life. And I do honestly at times feel a little selfish and a little sad, in other words, lonely for that state of perfection. I'm very eagerly anticipating my natural death. But this, what we call life, is temporary. And if it be for a job that I haven't finished, if it be that I was not really qualified and got kicked out of heaven, it doesn't really matter too much.
Now see, this is exactly what I was talking about in that first clip. He literally feels as if he was kicked out of heaven. He's, imagine how that must feel coming back here and living out the remainder of your natural life, able to share your experience and how quote unquote great it was, but always have that in the back of your mind that, maybe God kicked me out of heaven. This is total mind torture that happened to this poor guy. Again, he goes, whether it was manipulation or whatever the word was he used. Wouldn't you think that, if you're kind of going there, that maybe you're going to question things a little more, or you're just going to hang on and think that maybe, you know, I'm just going to hope everything's on the up and up and that I please God in my, you know, final real life review at the time of natural death. My heart goes out to this guy. Again, he has since passed back in, I believe, April of 2007. But, you know, Tom, if you're hearing this from beyond, I wish you the best, my friend. I do.
Life is temporary. And if it be for a job that I haven't finished, if it be that I was not really qualified and got kicked out of heaven, it doesn't really matter too much, the rationale behind it. The important point is that I have returned and that I've been very, very fortunate in being able to facilitate many things that I certainly would never have been able to accomplish. And trust me, I'm not being arrogant or egotistical now, but things that really would not have been able to be facilitated if I had not come back. In other words, with that which I was enhanced by and with that which I was allowed to learn, I'm trying not to take credit for it. In other words, it's not my fault. It's only Ash's fault. To take with that which I was allowed to learn, I'm trying not to take credit.
I was allowed to learn.
In other words, with that which I was enhanced by and with that which I was allowed to learn.
Enhanced and allowed to learn. Allowed. There's that word again. Allowed.
I'm trying not to take credit for it. In other words, it's not my fault. It's only Ash's fault. In other words, there also a little phrase that I worked my way up to, and if you've ever heard the phrase that there is no justice in nature, there's only nature. In other words, the lion does kill an antelope, and that's part of the food chain.
This is where it gets really cringy for me. I'm pretty sure it's this section. And it just, it hurts. You don't have a right to question God. It's the one thing you shouldn't be doing.
I worked my way up to, and if you've ever heard the phrase that there is no justice in nature, there's only nature. In other words, the lion does kill an antelope, and that's part of the food chain, and it's not the poor lion is going to go hungry or the poor antelope is going to be killed. In other words, there is no justice in nature. There's only nature, and it was by God. And as rational as we try to be and justifiable, you should not question God.
There it is. There it is. Don't question God. Don't question what's around you. How dare you? Don't question this existence. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to question God. However, the way it is down here, it is. And you just got to bite your tongue, eat it, and hope that you make it to the other side A-okay. And just trust me. God's got a plan. Everything's going to be fine. This is where we're at, my friends. This is where we're at. It's blind faith, blind acceptance for not just what the hell goes on here, but what goes on when we leave here. Really has to let this one sink in, because who is, first off, this God, okay, that created this place, which I don't think there's nothing really divine about this place, okay? It's an insane asylum, all right? There's a lot of beauty, okay? There's a lot of good, there's a lot of love, but the overall structure of how it's set up for the residents here, us and the animal kingdom, well, we are animals too, but everything that's here, okay, dies and eats one another, okay? We're not allowed to question that. We're not allowed to examine that and possibly point out that it's pretty messed up. Again, this is one of those messages that, you know, a lot of people agree with. Don't question God. Don't question anything. Whatever's supposed to be is supposed to be. And who are you to question it? So You get my point. I mean, this is a very, very common narrative we hear here in the Matrix, and enough is enough. That's what I'm saying.
And as rational as we try to be and justifiable, you should not question God. You should question yourself and your personal relationship with God, but you should not question the workings of nature to that degree. And
your personal relationship. That's different. That's different, because what is that? That's a communication with an entity that's pawning itself off as God, but has to do with the makeup of this place and in the insane asylum. No, I think I'll pass. Thanks.
and your personal relationship with God, but you should not question the workings of nature to that degree. And you should not make those judgment calls that a rabbit should live, but a mouse should not.
Don't make judgment calls that the rabbit should live and the mouse should not. Don't question, like, the dog-eat-dog world that's in front of you. Don't question the obvious that, you know, the predator and the prey. It is kind of weird and creepy and messed up and all over the place. Don't question it.
Your personal relationship with God, but you should not question the workings of nature to that degree. And you should not make those judgment calls that a rabbit should live, but a mouse should not. And in that capacity, there does not have to be an excuse or a rationale for me to be kicked out of heaven or sent back.
In coming back, however that did happen, are there
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to save her question. We've gone about a little over an hour and 20 minutes, so I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and I will be right back with you, and we'll finish off the interview here. And then I got one more clip, and then we're going to repeat that very short 3-minute clip that we played at the beginning for anyone that came in late, because it's really important to just rehash that just very, very quickly towards the end. So hang in there, my friends. I will see you very shortly, and great seeing you all. And we'll be right back. Alrighty, my friends. We are back. Thank you for your patience. Alright, so we're gonna jump right back into it. Hey, Michael, good to see you out there, brother. Alright, so let's get to her next question.
Things of nature to that, and you're they're set back.
In coming back,
Set back.
However, that did happen.
In coming back, however, that did happen. Just in case you can't hear her.
Set back.
In coming back, however, that did happen. Are there some people and some situations that you were made aware of that you needed to be here?
Yes, Carol, even you.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, are you really asking? I know there's as soon as I returned, was I aware of?
Well, I don't know if it's that or as you're living and you come across situations, you have a sense of where your time needs to be spent or the certain people you need to connect with.
I've experienced a lot of that. I'd never heard of the word synchronicity, as we use it so commonly now. I thought that there were coincidences and things of that nature, and that there was a lot of luck. There was some just victims of circumstances. It was very simplistically thought out, if I thought of it at all.
Too.
And now I see that there are many, many synchronistic series of events that can both lead you, even manipulate you, but you have also free will, so that
Do you hear it? He says forces that manipulate you, but you have free will. And we know we have free will, but those manipulations, in my strong opinion, are part of the life script. That is a huge, huge part of it, to try and sway you, lead you into certain situations, have certain people in your life, certain things that are supposed to roll out in your life as a result of the life script. And, again, he used the word manipulative, not me. He used it.
very simplistically thought out, if I thought of it at all. And now I see that there are many, many synchronistic series of events that can both lead you, even manipulate you, but you have also free will, so that, and regarding any given circumstance, you can accept or reject anything.
Do you have free will, son?
Yes, I do. Ooh, that was a loaded question, and I answered it, and I'm smiling. Yes, I really do. And as much as any human being, I do. I've been given some knowledge, and in other words, my five senses and several other senses have been enhanced. And I still will agree that I have free will over all of that. But with some of that knowledge, there comes a responsibility too. See, I want to tell you that I have responsibilities, but they're not manipulative. In other words, I'm not a victim, and I'm not being led. Although I realize additional responsibilities.
Although I realize additional responsibilities. Responsibilities perhaps from the experience? Perhaps a matrix marketing representative? Just saying. He knows there's manipulation and synchronicities. He even used manipulation, I believe, exactly as a term in relation to how he ended up back here. In conjunction with, I am stating the memory wipe. He says again, I don't recall making a specific choice. But, it's implied that he's here to help out, to shed his wisdom back here in the physical, spread the word. Well, what does he do? He was involved with the documentary, involved with these interviews. His case is fairly well known, and it all sounds good, doesn't it? Sounds good. But underneath, when you start deconstructing these things time and time and time again, we see that there is something rotten going on. You just have to identify the rotten segments, because all the love and light stuff overpowers, what's going on behind the scenes. Those key moments where big things are said. Things like not allowed. Come on. Manipulation. Kicked out of heaven. I have work to do. I have a mission, etc., etc. You guys get the point.
And I'm not being led, although I realize additional responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have free will, and can I just stop talking, and can I commit suicide? Can I become lustful? Can I become anything that I might desire to be, or allow myself to fall into? Any of these problems, often problems that people experience on a day-to-day basis? Yes, I can do any of that. I can deplete my physical body, as I have done to a large degree. Some manipulative on my part, in other words, on purpose, and other things that I don't have control over, such as the degree of the injury to my back. I didn't have control over that. It's something that, it was an accident, and I have to take the responsibility for that to a degree, but that wasn't my fault either. So if you would think in terms of being a victim of circumstances or being manipulated in that way, well, maybe that's so, but I don't feel that way. I feel as though I am in control of myself, because free will is probably the most powerful gift that God has given the human condition. I've talked about that in great detail before, and I don't think I can talk about that right this moment. There were individuals that I was aware of, and I got, let me first by kind of saying that I was basically a rather ignorant person regarding subjects as we're talking about now. And it was very strange for me to have a very profound perception of individuals such as Max Planck, Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, and eagerly anticipating meeting them. I didn't know what city they lived in, but I knew them very well. I knew them as though they were a next-door neighbor. And
now, where this leads, I'm of course I'm not gonna just cut it off there completely dry, but these are weird little things that happen in NDEs, where you come back with information related to people who are not even here. And like you somehow are retaining their information or learning to become a freaking concert pianist, playing Beethoven and God knows what. And then you have, you become an amazing artist and sell out like you're complete nobody. Not nobody, but a no name, okay? Artist. And you sell out a gallery, for 3-4 nights in a row. And it's, stuff related to your near-death experience. Come on. I would bet money that any one of us here would not be able to sell out an art gallery just because we had a near-death experience. Well, maybe if it was matrix driven, I'm saying, or if we just say tomorrow, we started making all these amazing paintings, say, okay, a year from now, we are going to spread our paintings in the art gallery. And guess what? I predict it's going to sell out for 3 or 4 nights in a row. I'm going to become a concert pianist, even though I have absolutely no piano skills. And I'm going to be able to play with symphonies and write music and create. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, right? And this guy, our good friend Tom Sawyer, which is still hilarious that it's his name, is communing with dead guys and getting channeled info. Or at least he's getting info in relation to what they had put out. It's nuts. It's again, Matrix Marketing Department, how may I help you? Right, Mary? I saw you post that one. I like saying that one. It's a fun one.
Individuals such as Max Planck, Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, and eagerly anticipating meeting them. I didn't know what city they lived in, but I knew them very well. I knew them as though they were a next-door neighbor. And it was shocking and a little sad for me to be told by another physicist that, well, Tom, you talk about them as though you would like to meet them. And I said, well, I would. And then he announced to me that they had died and that they were no longer alive. And, of course, through my ignorance, I didn't realize that they were famous physicists around the turn of the century. So that was a little shocking to me. It was strange. But I had that profound awareness as though they were a cousin or a next-door neighbor. That's one aspect. In other words, I was aware of a personal relationship with individuals who had passed on. I became aware of individuals walking around and so on, going to conferences and what have you. I would see someone in a crowded room and just walk over and introduce myself, in other words, socially, politely, but profoundly knowing that I had to say something specifically to that individual. Sometimes it would be only that information, that whoever that person is over there, I must tell them about the Meissner effect or some such subject. And then it's even come to pass, like I just mentioned, the Meissner effect, which is in physics. And I might mention it out loud and then have to go to a book and look it up. Because it might be very important for me to say something about it, which, let's say spiritually, I might have been aware of. But then in my own personal interest, I would have to look it up to find out what it really meant.
Yeah, that's called channeling or possession. Entity attachment. In the moment, it serves its purpose as a attachment through his vessel to put it out in whatever the scenario is. But then when he reverts back to himself, minus the attachment, or the attachment, the possession, the entity, whatever, is distant or not present possibly, then, he's scanning through the books and everything, trying to figure out, what was I talking about, the other day, a few hours back? I mean, it's all the same stuff, guys. It's wild.
Been aware of, but then in my own personal interest, I would have to look it up to find out what it really meant. So does that mean that I was sent back with bits and pieces of information to help other people? Sure. I mean, okay. I've already accepted that. And it's happened so many times that it's not just a fluke or a coincidence, or I'm not playing a super head game or even a psychic head game, which is possible. You can be psychic to a degree and know enough to play what I'll call head games or mind games, just for the purposes of sensationalism and even to make a profit or excuses and rationales like that. And I haven't really fallen into that. I'll call it a trap for me. In other words, that would be a trap for me. I would not wish to do that. And in 11 years.
Interesting terminology. Trap. Matrix reincarnation soul trap. Just, I don't know. I just find it funny that that word comes up.
I'll call it a trap for me. In other words, that would be a trap for me. I would not wish to do that. And in 11 years, I haven't done that. Should I just briefly say, because we're talking about the experience, summarize that I had a complete life review. I was given additional information. I blended into that light. And in the very last stage that I can possibly remember with any accuracy, it was a return trip through the tunnel. Again, with no excuses or rationale, but and I slammed back into my body. At the same time, the truck was lifted off me, and I was revived.
Okay, Tom, going back to your reference to God's unconditional love, how does that relate to sin?
Sin? Sin. I tried that one. Yeah. Well, I don't know. If somebody else would have asked me that question, if it'd be a question, somebody else would have asked me that, I would have probably, like one-on-one, I would have asked them, what is your definition of sin? And work off that. I think the difference between ourselves and as we, and I'm kind of stereotyping or generalizing everybody, that we have a perception of sin. And of course it's self-imposed, even if it be a cultural conditioning. In other words, you're taught that's good, that's bad, and that's so bad that it's a sin, as opposed to something that's not quite as bad is not really a sin, it's just a little bit bad. Further than that, you do have natural instincts, such as if you do something to hurt someone's feelings, you will intuitively know, even ahead of time, that this will probably hurt someone's feelings. Or if you do act it out or say it or do it, you will then experience that this hurt a person's feelings. And then you have immediately two choices. If you block it, psychologically shun it, and justify it, and do all those things and justify that, no, you didn't sin or you didn't do a bad thing, that it was either justifiably bad or that it was just plain bad, but so what? Or totally block it. That may or may not be a sin at that point in time.
May or may not be a sin at that point in time. But, perhaps it can build up to one and, you got to answer for it. It's just...
Or totally block it. That may or may not be a sin at that point in time. I think the biggest problem with sin is that I'm talking me for me, and therefore generalizing about everybody, is that the things, the sins of omission and commission that we perform or that we are responsible for in a lifetime are vastly unperceived. In other words, the numbers of inadequacies, the numbers of perpetuated things, in other words, to perform or to do something that is sinful or negative or bad, is that we don't even perceive them on a conscious level.
I guess what I'm trying...
Boy, isn't there, I'm going to just break this down in its simplest form. You're not even able to perceive it consciously. So we could be sinning running around sinning up the joint, and we're not even aware of it. Isn't that a mind? Really? Stew on that one, my friends. You're sinning, but you don't even know you're sinning. Ooh.
Is that we don't even perceive them on a conscious level.
I guess what I'm trying to relate to is that most of us were brought up to feel that when you pass over, there'd be this scale that this big bad
judgment.
person
Yeah.
getting into judgment,
Yeah,
right?
the judgment. Sure.
That this is what you did good and this is what you did bad, and based on all of that, you would either go to heaven or go to hell. And in terms of what you experience with God's unconditional love,
I think that as opposed to having a transitional state that would include an aspect of purgatory or a hellish experience or a time frame, if you will, that you don't go right from this life, the express lane, right into the light or into the heaven state, that can be perceived with some degree of accuracy as a cause and effect relationship from ill-gotten gains or negative deeds, things of that nature.
You just got to do what's right, my friends, because you want to do what's right. You want to walk the walk, talk the talk, and be good because you want to be good. You want to treat others with respect, kindness, empathy, and compassion because you want to. That's all you got to do. That's how I live my life. I'm not worried about answering to some parasitic creep of entities or whatever the heck's going on. I'm just, no. You know, you reform your life and make sure that, you know, you live morally and ethically because you want to. And not get bogged down by the, you know, this and that and this and that. You just walk the path because you want to, because it's the right thing to do. It makes you feel good, makes everyone else feel good that's around you, and you try to do the best you can. That's all we can do. But there is no judgment, karma, sinning retribution that you must answer for unless you believe in it. You believe in it, you sign up for it. That's it. Then you're going to get it. I mean, that's how the system's set up. It's set up to prey upon those fears and thinking that you owe something else outside of yourself an explanation. That you have to atone for your sins. You have to pay a karmic debt. Whatever the heck you want to call it. Just be good to be good. Be nice to be nice because you want to do that. And, you know, choose who you're going to relate with. Choose who you're not going to relate with. But don't treat people like shit just because, you know, there's no, nothing you have to answer for. That's just crap. I mean, that just goes to show character. You know, you don't judge others and come up with all these wacky conclusions and ideas just because you feel that they're justified and right. Doesn't mean they're always justified and right. You take each situation, each person individually and judge them based on their merits. You know, I'm a big one for saying respect is earned, not assumed. Mutual respect. That's what it's about. And, you know, it takes a lot to send me over the edge, but it happens. And we just got to do the best we can. Just got to do the best we can.
Gains or negative deeds, things of that nature. But generally, I was rather shocked, if you will. I mean, one of the most profound things I learned is that there was no such thing as hell. That that the things that I had been taught and shown were terrible deeds, and that don't you dare say or do this, or don't you dare think this way or act this way, is that that was not, in fact, a sin, and it wasn't perceived as that. Plus, the fact that God, certainly the God that I experienced, is an all-loving God, and that even though there are very few rare circumstances where in a transitional state or after death, I'll say it that way, after death, there can be a reparation or a further learning experience. It's not from condemnation. It would be more perceived as just a magnificent, loving gesture on the part of God to give you not really a second chance, but to give you the opportunity for a learning experience to overcome our human inadequacies, be they psychological, spiritual, or any other way, physical, all of those things.
Okay. Alrighty, let's see. So we are going to, let's see where we're at. All right. So going to pop up. Tom brings up reincarnation and another interview. I think it's actually this is the second part of the interview that he did inside, I believe, with the same person. So let me just get this in there. He kind of goes a little all over the place with it, but you know, it's I don't know. You'll get a response out of me. Let's put it that way. It's all right. So all right. So this is interview with Tom of America, Reincarnation, 1990. All right. So just so you know, you guys might want to be close to your volume adjuster. May want to lower it. It may get a little loud. Hopefully not, because the level should be as even as possible, but just saying. Your ears might be ready to lower the volume. Here we go.
Your normal playback on Tom.
I'm reading a book. A good book, by the way, The Seat of the Soul. It's quite new.
Who's the author?
Came out, Gary Zukov, who wrote The Dancing Woolly Masters, which I've championed for a long time. It's a science book, kind of science overlaid into, or interlaced into spirituality, or spirituality interlaced into science. In this book I was just reading, it's just a question. We're going to try to talk into reincarnation, but we'll start here because it has a question here that I kind of caught my eye. And it says, does non-physical reality exist? Well, if you're watching this tape, hopefully you have some inkling that there is a feasible or possibility non-physical reality to this thing we call the human condition. And this book also deals with the five sensory personality, which is basically all of us. But they're segmenting the fact that a lot of people, scientists, atheists, self-proclaimed atheists, because I don't believe there really is an atheist. I haven't met any yet. I've met a lot of people that
Think they are.
Yeah, think that they are, claim that they are, and I've never met a real one yet. But at any rate, they typically, using just their five senses, like prove it to me, and it can't exist if you can't prove it, and vice versa. So this gives a question. In regards to the question, does non-physical reality exist? It says, proof of non-physical reality does not exist in the dimension of the rational, that the rational mind seeks it. Therefore, when you ask from the perspective of a five-sensory personality, does non-physical reality exist? What you really are asking is, if I cannot prove the existence of non-physical reality, do I decide that it is nonsensical? Do I decide that there is no answer? Or do I expand myself to the level at which the answer can be given. And I
So
kind
you
of
are your own limitation.
Well, yeah, that's very true. And, you know, we're going to attempt to talk into reincarnation, make an attempt anyway. And one of the problems is that you're dealing with a non-physical reality, the mechanics of reincarnation, in that if any of that is true, well, that means that each of us, paying attention now, hearing this tape, is in an incarnation. So from that perspective, we are here, and this is what we call reality. Can we dare assume or prove or disprove the existence of a reality that we have no measurements for? There's no
recollection, no conscious memory of,
no provable recollection.
Right, because sometimes we have the memory,
Why,
but
sure.
never where they come from.
And of course, my famous cautions of past life regression toward getting an answer of reincarnation is that be awfully careful that the regression that you are doing is not simply, and I say, as opposed to more intensively, just simply a clairvoyant functioning of another person, place, thing, or time that could be construed as a previous incarnation.
He makes a hell of a point there. He makes a hell of a point. It's, who knows what type of chatter can be picked up and misconstrued as your own or your previous incarnation, whatever. But the only saving grace, like past life regressions were one of the last few things I looked into. Even though I kind of like dipped in and out of them, like in my new age phase and stuff, and then revisited them a few times, I was always hesitant with them because, again, so much blind faith, right? But again, the patterns piled up time and time and time again, and it clearly showed deception. Because most people are not like, oh, I'm Cleopatra or George Washington or, Sonny Bono or whatever. That's a weird one to mention, but anyways, you get what I'm saying. It's just not. It's a tough one. It's like the very outskirts of the soul trap, in my opinion. But as I kept going and revisiting back and forth, it really started to show itself, just in case data with the patterns, and and then of course we see the crossover with the pre-birth memories. Life Between Lives, which is basically past life regression, and all the other topics. Okay, the NDEs, people pick up on sometimes their past life, and it's just like the most it's like a store clerk in the gold rush days or something, something really basic. All the sensational things with past life regressions, I just discount them. I discount them. Like if someone's saying that they're Cleopatra or something crazy, I move on. I do not need a case like that tainting the well. And that's not to say that other cases haven't come in and tainted the well. That it's of course prone to manipulation no matter what. But over a large case file, like case files and data set, it becomes very clear and obvious that this stuff ain't bullshit. It's not. Okay, but so yeah, I just want to put that out there because I think it's really important. And he makes a hell of a point. I mean, I tip my hat for him for saying that, and he even we'll continue. I don't want to drone on too much.
Another person, place, thing, or time that could be construed as a previous incarnation. Because all of the measurements that you will gain from a past life regression acting only clairvoyantly is identical to a bona fide past life regression.
Okay, so what you're saying, if I'm trying, because this is really important to me, doing regression, is that if the hypnotist or the person guiding someone back isn't careful, the person could pick up on universal knowledge, which could be anybody's life.
Yes, right.
Rather than on their particular life's remembrance.
And the fact that they are functioning clairvoyantly, in the true sense of the word, that they are being in the eyes of King George, that they are feeling what King George felt, that they're knowing intimate personal details, that they can see the secret passageway, the secret mistress, things that are both provable but are rare in history and non-provable in history but are assuredly known by the person experiencing that. That can be done clairvoyantly.
Yep.
So you wouldn't have had to have been that person to remember some of that.
Exactly. I love it. I mean, that is so spot on that, you can pick up remnants. I mean, look, I really don't like the whole term, akashic records, whatever the hell you want to call them. All right. Whatever the heck it is. All right. Because it's so worn out, so new agey, and I can't handle it. Okay. So it just is it's in the ether. All right. It's in, you're able to pick it up. All right. It's somewhere under the veil of something linked to this reality. All right, it's in the collective. So yeah, exactly. Michael was Alexander the Great. Burke, vegan skeptic, is Harry Potter. I mean, exactly. I mean, this is the type of stuff we're talking about. It's like, just throw it to the side. Whatever. Skip those cases. It's just not worth your time. There's no reason to continue to pursue them because there's so many other cases. Why deal with Alexander the Great or Harry Potter? And hope you're doing well out there, Burke. Good to see you, brother.
And coming back from a past life regression or being on a conscious level, having had a past life regression, you might very well have gone into a past life of yours. If it be totally or characteristically, in other words, that you have gained a characteristic from this previous lifetime or this person of a previous lifetime, it might very well be. But the words that you will come back saying, the sentences and the proof that many people use as proof of reincarnation or past life regression, or in fact that it was my past life or your past life, the sentences that they say are not proof at all. They're an inclination that there is a possibility of that. So we're back to what can we prove and what can we disprove.
Right.
And one of the problems that we have a tendency to do is either sit around and wait and wish and read books and wait for somebody to tell us, such as me trying to tell you right now, of the existence of this thing called reincarnation, when in fact we, each of us individually, either have not had the opportunity or simply are not, for any number of excuses or no excuse at all, expanding our mind, expanding our ability to see knowledge, to gain knowledge, in a level or a capacity at which that level, that information will be explainable or seeable. Difficult subject. Well,
if we go right back to, say, most of us that are viewing this film were probably brought up in Christian faith, where reincarnation is not acceptable, or it's just beginning to expand to open the possibility.
Yeah, I have to interrupt because in Catholicism, in the Vatican, there are voluminous papers and scriptures and things like that on reincarnation.
That's what I was alluding to. I know in Shirley MacLaine's book, she said that there was a conscious effort in
politics, politics.
Yeah, that took all reincarnational information out of the Bible.
little more power, a little more man-made power, a little more control of the masses.
That was the reason.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean,
this is something that's been discussed time and time and time again about how reincarnation was taken out of the Bible, the Vatican's hiding it. I mean, just imagine what is in that Vatican library. Who the hell knows? Just imagine what's like in like just these parasitical controller wannabe jerks who run this place. Just imagine what's in those libraries. Just imagine of the things that just our brief history. Just think about the brief history that we have access to, and all of the stuff that's been destroyed for who knows how many resets and many, many lifetimes. It's endless. The reason they really can continue to get away with this stuff is not just the control, but the destruction of information. However many generations, however many multiple hundreds of years that, or maybe even thousands, who knows, before they, blanket fire or reset down on us and basically scorch earth, all of the old documentation, and then bring in a whole new cycle. Who knows? We have no clue how deep this goes, but we do know that they're hiding lots of stuff, and that this place has not been around for, the documented time period that we have available to us. That much seems clear. Now, how deep that goes and all that, and how often the resets happen, I don't know. There's no way to say with any certainty. All we know is that information is constantly withheld, destroyed, and then they reset and repeat the process over again. And then, of course, you apply the veil of forgetfulness on top of it, and it's amazing we've even made it this far and been able to kind of break down this information in this time. And if you really think about it, the window has been very small for us to have access to the information that we do have, and it keeps closing and closing and closing with obviously rampant censorship. And it's just we're lucky, okay? We're lucky to live in this time and be so fortunate to have at least the access that we do, at the click of a mouse type of keyboard. I mean, so again, we all picked this lifetime, I feel, for a reason. I seriously believe that. I don't think that we're all here during this period of time by accident. I don't. I think something inside of most of us, I can't say all of us, but I think most of us, at least I feel this about myself, so I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I'm just going to say I do feel that something inside of us knew to come here during this time period, because we'd likely not just be able to see the changes, but also have access to what we do. So that's just my opinion on it. Everyone's got to, go with their gut on that one. And again, let's just be thankful that we do have what we have. I mean, I know I am.
A little more power, a little more man-made power, a little more control of the masses.
That was the reason.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, sad as it might be for a spiritual conversation, that is the reality of the politics of so many churches, so many religions. That
but if you have more than one lifetime to work out your problems, you may not have to go to your minister.
Yeah, that's another tremendous fallacy on the part of people's attitude who seem to think, or in fact do, have a recognition or an understanding, or let's just leave it as a fervent belief regarding reincarnation, that oh well, since I've come from many lifetimes and I have many lifetimes to go, if I screw this time up, I have another chance. And that isn't valid, because that's totally disregarding the fact that life is precious. Any life, any segment of life. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I would wish for anybody to do, and again I have to refer to that book, The Seat of the Soul, because it has a chapter on reverence. And for any of us to get in a conversation like this, we should be at our individual highest level of reverence for life. Reverence in general. Mm-hmm. Not just the dictionary definition either, but a true reverence for any aspect of life. For instance, DLIVE that I might talk about is reincarnation of a characteristic as opposed to an entire personality, as opposed to an entire soul. Now we'll have to use those terms. So I think I'll start out by giving a quick definition of a characteristic. Doesn't need much of a definition. In other words, I have a characteristic of being, something overbearing, obnoxious,
controlling,
in control.
All right, so that is going to end that segment, okay? And, you know, he made a lot of good points there. A lot of good points. It's just, I really, really hope Tom is all right. Although it does seem pretty obvious that, he went where he wanted to go and did his thing. So it is what it is. But, I have faith that, not faith, but positive thinking and a strong inner knowing that if Tom has the essence, and I think he does, that he will do what's best for him and get out in a future lifetime. So I'd like to just take we're only got a little bit of a clip here. So what I'm going to do is this. Anyone, where are we at? Let's see. 2:15. Let's see. Does anyone, you know what? Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the clip that we played earlier in the show at the very beginning, where he talks about, I don't recall making a specific choice, which is in reference to coming back, and, gets very emotional about it. And, yeah, so let's just see how this goes. Get this up here. All right, there we are. This is a short one, maybe 3-4 minutes. For those that may have came in late, I think it's a good way to.
The next thing that I experienced or realized that I was in this huge vastness of just nothing, just darkness. I might add in here, during this time, the pressure and the pain that you experienced during the accident was gone. You were relieved of all that. The one sensation that you're very aware of is your eyesight, or that you can see. You then see that this area that you're in, that you're passing through, takes the shape of a tunnel. And dimension-wise, it was vast. It was anywhere from 1,000 feet to 1,000 miles wide. And it was definitely to infinity. And before you is this just magnificent, beautiful, bright white light. You are confronted by true, pure love. In my case, since I've talked to other people, I realize that they necessarily were not given a choice. In my case, at that moment, I was aware that I could immediately choose to leave and return to reality or my body. Or I could have the choice of moving forward or desiring to enter into or become part, rather emotional, become part of this light. And the next moments, I did desire to become part of this light, including considering my life in reality, the love that I have for my wife and children, for the people around me, the wonderful things that I've been able to do in my life. I've had a really exciting and wonderful life prior to this experience, and the wonderful things that I can continue to do, helping the people around me, making love to my children and my wife and close friends and so on. But it was so much more desirable. This was perfection. This was heaven or God. And it is now confusing to me. I don't recall making a specific choice.
Ding, 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 ding. Wah, wah. The alarm bells go off. I don't recall making a specific choice.
And it is now confusing to me. I don't recall making a specific choice. I recall desiring to enter this light, and I did in fact make a forward motion. Excuse me. The return.
You know what that look is? You know what that emotion is? That is him feeling like he was kicked out of heaven. That's what that is. He's made that abundantly clear through everything I've looked at in the videos, and today everything we went over, and other websites he's talked on and gave interviews on prior to his death. It's just so obvious. And again, you got to feel bad for someone who comes back in this position and feels like they got kicked out of freaking heaven. Again, imagine carrying that weight on your shoulders. Can't be easy. It's like, what are you doing? You're kind of living the remainder of your natural life when you come back here, kind of trying to win your way back in. Just imagine the mental anguish that went through him for who knows how long, if not his whole life. I hope it didn't go through his whole life, but it's possible that that's what happened.
Making a specific choice. I recall desiring to enter this light, and I did in fact make a forward motion. Excuse me. The return trip was extremely vivid, and it was everything in reverse.
You went back through the tunnel,
right,
and so forth?
Back through the tunnel and to reality, and upon reaching the beginning of the tunnel at the reality point, I woke up or came to or entered my body with just a huge bang, with a jolt similar to an electric shock, or just, bang like that.
The minute I decided that I had to come back,
That is going to wrap up everything for tonight with the commentary. I would like just to say really quickly that for anyone interested, there is a membership on the YouTube channel here called the Last Timers Club, and there's 3 different levels right now, and levels 2 and 3 include monthly members live streams, and that happens once a month. I usually try to announce it a week in advance, 5 days in advance, somewhere around there, is give you as much notice as possible. And there's also, if you're interested, a way to support the channel through donations with Stream Elements. And on that site, they don't take 30% like YouTube does. So, you know, again, if you do want to support the channel, I greatly appreciate it. But, you know, we're living in crazy times with inflation. And I always stress that any information that I share will never, ever cost money. Anything that's important and that needs to be put out there will always be free. Just like many of my other videos, like probably 99% of the videos I put out are like that. So rest assured, you'll never miss anything that's important. But if you want a little added bonus content every month, feel free to join us in the memberships. And there is a backlog of videos available, and you're more than welcome to check those out. And we also have a Discord community chat server, and I just posted the link in the live chat there if you'd like to join us after the show tonight. And yeah, so you're more than welcome. If you guys don't mind, just really quickly, I actually meant to do this earlier. I'm gonna take a quick poll. Can you just answer this poll, please? I'd really appreciate it. Do you get notifications in your YouTube feed for the streams on this channel? Because I saw quite a few people mention this today. So I'm, you know, it's weird because it does seem to come in phases where, you know, some people get notifications, some people don't. The best thing I can recommend is always to have the bell set to all. But even then, people still tell me that they're not getting them. So I just don't know what the heck's going on. The only other alternative I can recommend is following the channel over on Twitter and Instagram and joining the Discord, because I do put out notifications usually an hour, sometimes a few hours, or maybe even like a day in advance for a show that I'm going to do, or like an interview or something like that. So signing up on those alternative platforms, if you're on them, may be worth a shot. But yeah. So I'm sorry for anyone who's not getting those. And I do have 2 YouTube backup channels if you're not already subscribed to them. I think I'm going to make one of them a clips channel down the road. I'm not sure when, but as of right now, you're not going to get bothered over any of those channels. And, you know, when things change or if things change and I do decide to do like a clips channel, I'll let you guys know. But, you know, I would suggest even hitting the bell notification with all for those, just in case something ever happens here. And then of course, then I have ODYSEE, DLIVE, Twitch. I already said Instagram, Twitter. And then there is an announcement that's going to come sometime soon. I'm in talks right now with a website developer still to get everything that I kind of want to get panned out. And I'm hoping that I can give you a little more information on that in the next week or so. So thank you again, everyone, for hanging in there with me and checking out the channel. And I think we will see each other again on Saturday. There will be no Sunday show this weekend, so that's why I did one tonight. And thank you again. And if you want to join us in the Discord server afterwards, feel free. We'll be in the voice chat. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you again on Saturday, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you.